Welcome everybody, and tonight we at SVPMA we're pleased to introduce Lynne Levy. She is a product management consultant, and she's based out of Boston, if I have that right or close enough.
Yes, absolutely.
And she is here today to, I don't have the details slide behind this, but she's here today to talk to SVPMA, and we're looking forward to hearing what she has to say. And with that, take it away, Lynne.
All right, thank you. So could you folks enable screen sharing so I can share my deck?
Yes, I will stop sharing. And is your screen share button turned green?
It says
yet?
host disabled participant screen sharing.
Oh dear. Liz, can you, let me see.
You can make her a co-host, that works.
Yeah, let me see.
Talk amongst yourselves, everybody.
1 second. Play the Jeopardy theme song. Right?
There we go. Okay, perfect.
Excellent.
All right, let's rock and roll.
All right, excellent.
You folks see my screen?
Perfect.
Howdy.
So we are going to talk today about how to step into product leadership and to be an amazing product leader who others want to follow. So working with me, you don't want to listen to me for an hour. So we're going to be doing work. Okay, gang? So get out your paper and pen. Bring up a Word document because we're going to be working tonight. Okay. This is about moving into leadership and actively getting into the driver's seat of your career. All right. So who the heck am I? I'm a product coach, advisor, and mentor. I actually work directly with product managers and with product management leaders. Coaches, consultants can work directly with the product managers or through a company. I do not work through a company. My jam is I work directly with folks. I'm a former product leader. I was a director at a $1 billion+ company. I'm actually on the board of directors at the Boston Product Management Organization. And I've been in product my entire career. Expertise in the B2B tech space, complex innovations, and I think I've been a product manager since I was born. I love product. And my passion is to not only help you folks and people like you get into amazing jobs, but I want you to love what you're doing. I want you to be happy at work because I fundamentally believe it's only when we can be ourselves at work and we're happy about what we're doing that innovation is going to happen. So let's dive in. And I'm going to pause throughout to give you folks some time to do a little work and to ask me some questions. So I was invited to MIT, to like an MIT graduate school event about 2 years ago. And it was interesting. So they had this panel, and I was on the panel, and they were talking about people who want to get into product management. And it was kind of fun. Everybody's like, oh my gosh, it's a wonderful career. It's so much fun. The tech is great. And everybody kept talking about the tech and, and technology frameworks. So when they got to me, being the realist that I am, I said, this is great, but let me be clear. Tech is easy, people are hard. The hardest part of product management is the people side of it. Tech is easy. Managing an architect who wants to re-architect the product, that's hard. Convincing a customer success manager that no, we cannot meet those customer requirements, that's hard. Trying to get your business case approved by a CTO who has his or her own agenda, that's hard. Writing a requirement, writing an epic, we have lots of frameworks for that. And we don't talk about this enough, that really the stress of product management and the intensity comes from the emotion that we have to deal with in the world of product. So I'm a leadership and career coach. So that's why my passion is not only to help people land amazing jobs, but navigate the complexities of the people side of it. So I'm hoping after our little conversation, you'll have some tools in your tool belt that you can start to use tomorrow. That's my goal. Okay, so let's talk about some shifts we need to make to move into leadership, to get a hold of your career, and to love what you do. The first one is leadership. I'm a huge leadership fan. And let's be honest, all of you folks as product managers are leaders. End of story. And I also believe influencing people is more difficult than having a direct report. So you are all leaders today. And if somebody tells you otherwise, they are wrong. What we do in the world of product in terms of management and leadership and having to convince people and influence people is leadership. And I love this quote from Simon Sinek. A boss has the title, a leader has the people. Leadership is about being the person others want to follow. Leadership is about saying, listen, I want to be on that person's project because they're an awesome product manager. I'm on a little bit of a mission to create a bunch of amazing product leaders who treat people as human beings versus cogs in the wheel. The reality is ego-centered, top down. I'm going to tell you what to do. Don't ask me any questions. Does not work. So I'm a leadership coach teaching people how to lead with humanity. And by doing so, oh my gosh, they get amazing promotions and they start to love what they're doing. All right, so let's talk about leadership. Let's talk about how you folks can step into leadership right now. And it's actually really easy. To be honest, it's actually not that hard. It's about putting aside our ego. First thing I want you to do is I want you to treat others as they want to be treated. It's actually really simple. We don't want to walk in the room assuming we have to know everything and that we have to have the last word. I want you to leverage the strengths of the people around you. I take it very much as a coach and a product manager, I take a strengths-based approach. I am not good at the details. I'm really good at strategy. I'm really good at discovery, launching. I am not, please don't ask me to write a detailed use case because I'm going to fall asleep. I'm not good at it. So I always make sure to have product owners and to surround myself with people who are really good at the details. Don't assume you have to do everything. Don't assume you have to be involved in every decision. Leverage the strengths of the people around you. And when you do that, people will feel empowered and they'll feel valued. So to step into leadership, the first thing I want you to do is to leverage the strengths of the people around you. So let's throw in the chat, what leaders in the public eye leverage the people around them? Who's an example? Somebody who does a really good job at saying, listen, I don't know everything. I'm going to turn this over. I'm going to say one. I'm going to say Anthony Fauci. He does a really good job. He stays in this is what he knows. If they get into whether it's rollout or politics of it, that's not my area. Let me bring so-and-so to the podium. Who else do you see who does a really good job at, I don't want to use the word staying in their swim lane, but saying, listen, this is not my area of expertise. Or yes, the quiet servant leaders. This is all servant leadership. Absolutely, Jim. How about in your organization? Think about who in your organization does a really good job at saying, listen, great question. I'm going to bring in so-and-so. They're the expert in this. So think about your organization. Does anybody have a leader in the organization who does this? Just throw yes or no in the chat if you could. All right, so Tom's a yes, others, yes. All right, good. Very good. All right, we've got a couple yeses. We've got a lot of yeses and just a couple no's. So I'm gonna say Jim. Jim, are you there? Yeah, you're there.
Yes.
And I'm gonna do what I usually do. I'm gonna volunteer people. You guys ever heard of the term volunteer? I just call on you. Do you mind if I call on you, Jim?
Whether I did or not, it's too late.
There we go. Here we go. Tell us about Mark from Salesforce.
He seemed to build a company culture. And I'm just looking at the Super Bowl ad. That was an interesting one. I did not watch the Super Bowl, but I went and watched a set of ads from there, and that was the most interesting one I saw out of the whole bunch. And he was basically making a jab at Facebook and at Meta and at the guys building rockets now and such, and say, hey, let's take care of the earth. It was a really interesting kind of humanistic sort of thing. And I've seen, in general, his behavior seems to be one of trying to empower the people on his team, making sure they have a good work experience. And I haven't seen him try to claim a whole lot of credit except for maybe a building and a hospital, maybe like that, but otherwise.
So there we go. You said something really key that I'm going to cover in a minute. Part of moving into leadership and being recognized as being a leader is actually giving others the credit.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually surrounding yourself with people who are brilliant and acknowledging them for what they bring to the table. And you folks as product managers, it's hard because it's hardwired into us. We want to know everything. We want to do everything. We want to be involved in every decision. But the more we can leverage the people around us, the more we will be seen as a leader and give the credit to those people you're working with. Okay, so here's what I want you to do this week, gang. I want you to get out of the weeds. I want everybody to pull up your calendar for this week, please. Pull up your calendar. Is there one meeting that you don't need to go to, where literally if they make the decision without you, the world is not going to fall apart? Yeah, you may be a little uncomfortable, but I promise the world is not going to fall apart. And I challenge you to decline one meeting that you don't need to be there, that's in the weeds, that the others can handle. And then I want you to put in the chat a commitment. Yes, you will decline one meeting this week. Let's see it. Because part of stepping into leadership is being able to say no and saying, I trust you guys. I've got your back if the bad decision's made. The world is not going to fall apart, but I am better off I need to use my time for these other things. All right, Jim already did one. I want to see people actually hit decline. Are you going to decline? I only see 2 people. Let's go, guys. Let's go, rock stars. Let's see it. I know it's hard. You want to be at the daily scrum meeting? I know, but do you really need to be there? Do you really need to be at the stand up? All right. So I challenge you today to decline a meeting or 2. It's part of leadership. And no, don't decline. Very funny. But part of stepping into leadership is actually not being available all the time, everywhere, at every meeting. Okay, so that's your first action. Next thing, I want you to define a product leader. What is product leadership? How do you define it? How does a product leader interact with their team? How do they make decisions? How do they manage up? How do they make people feel? Oh, I have a typo. See, I told you I'm not very good at the details. How do they inspire? So I want you to spend a couple minutes and I want you to write it down. And then I'd like to open up the floor and let's just, I call it popcorn it. What is a product leader? Just throw some words out.
Are we typing or talking?
I'll give you a minute to type. No, and then I want you to talk. I actually want you to speak. So since Kunal, how do you define a product leader?
I'll keep my description short.
Good.
I think a product leader empowers their team to do their best work and to be their best.
Very good. Others. What does a product leader do?
I would say the one who is responsible for the success of the product, do whatever it takes to get it out, to get it successful.
So they are the one who is ultimately accountable.
Yes, even though it's sometimes a team effort, but at the end of the day, product management, blame for everything, credit for nothing. So you are the one who is the face and the voice of the product.
Absolutely. Others. Empowers the team to do their best work and be at their best. Absolutely. Was another statement.
Yeah, this is Daniel. Yeah, to me, a product leader is somebody who has a very clear vision for the team, can formulate that vision and can inspire to others to embrace that vision and empower them to execute towards that vision.
Absolutely. One of my core beliefs about product leadership is product leader empowers the team and has their back when they screw up.
That's true.
All right. Great leaders don't have all the answers. They ask great questions. They connect diverse people and functions, empowers the team. So what I didn't hear in any of these definitions, I didn't hear anybody say a product leader tells everybody what to do. Right? But it's not kind of our reality sometimes. We're told what to do. Here's what you're going to do. Here's the roadmap. Product leadership is about inspiring your team. Okay, let's keep going. Hang on, I've got to get all right. So I want you to write this definition down. And I want you to look at it and say, how do you operate today? Is this how you are operating today as a product manager? Because remember, you're a leader. So you've got your definition of what is a product leader, and then you have what you're doing. So is there one thing you can do this week to be this product leader? Is there one thing you can do to set the vision, to inspire the team, to be curious versus judgmental? So I challenge you all to see what can you do this week. So remember, today's session is about stepping into leadership. How do you get that promotion? How are you seen as a director, senior director? And my challenge to you all is I want you to start tomorrow, because this is what leadership is. Okay. Are people with me? I feel like I'm talking to a wall. Usually with my coaching group, I put bad 80s music on to get people moving. There we go. Good. You put your video on, gang, so I can see you. 80% of communication is nonverbal. So let's see you. No video. There we go. Thank you for some of you.
Yeah, some of us are multitasking and eating, so.
That's all right. That's all right. I understand. Okay, next thing we're going to do is I want you to understand what are your strengths. I had a client once who I started to work with, and she came to me with single-lined paper of everything she's doing wrong. And she said, "Can we fix this, Lynn?" And I said, "All right, I want you to take that and let's throw it in the garbage." Because that's not about dealing with our weaknesses. It's about leveraging our own brilliance. Right? You folks ever heard of the concept of 10,000 hours to mastery? What are we going to do? We're going to spend 10,000 hours on everything? No. We've got skill sets. We've got strengths. This is what we're good at. And we surround ourselves with people who are good at the other things. That's what leadership is. So I want you to, at least for tonight, I just want you to think about I'm going to put up 4 key areas. I mean, there's tons of assessments on strengths. I usually do between Gallup and character strengths are my 2 favorites. But put yourself in a quadrant. Are you the get things done person? Are you the influencer? Are you the relationship builder? Or are you the strategic thinker? For me, everything is about relationships. And then please put in the chat where you fall. Let's see where you fall. Are you executing, influencing, relationship building, or strategic thinking? And you can only have one answer. You can't be all of them. I mean, you can be, but for tonight, you can only be one. What is your biggest strength? And let's see it in the chat. Executing, strategic, strategic, strategic. There we go. Keep going. There are 41 of you influencing. Really good. Keep going. Couple more. It's a good mix. It's a really good mix of strengths, which is common in the world of product. So I want you to own your brilliance. This is what you're good at. This is what you love to do. So part of being a leader is to saying, this is my superpower. This is what I'm really good at. Yes, you can do the other things, but you're probably at your best when you're in that area. And the reality is, to be in product leadership, you do need all of these, but acknowledge the fact that you're probably better at one, and that's okay. So the first thing we talked about was leadership. I challenge you. I just went through about 3 things you folks can do today, do tomorrow. I challenge you to do it. Next thing to do is to build a fan club. This is about moving into leadership. Oh my gosh, I hear this all the time from my clients. Then if I'm going to take on another project, I'm going to be on the calls with India at 7 a.m. and calls with China at 11 p.m. I'm going to be on every call. I'm going to be at every meeting. And maybe somebody will notice me for all the work I do. I call that the hope strategy. Anybody ever had the hope strategy? I know I had it for a lot of times, many years. I'm just going to keep working hard. Maybe somebody will acknowledge me. This is not the way to move into leadership. Okay, so here's what I want you to do to move into leadership is to build a fan club. And here's the thing. As product managers, we are very uncomfortable saying, hey, look at me. Aren't I great? That's not who we are. right? We're already the unsung heroes. So here's what you do to build a fan club is I want you to actually start to celebrate others. I want you to celebrate and recognize your colleagues, your team, and others. And let's talk really quick about recognition. So, since Daniel, who has his video on, I'm going to give you 2 recognition moments, and I want you to tell me which one hits the nail on the head. Okay, you up for it, Daniel? Yes, you, Daniel Wolday.
All right.
You ready for it?
Yes, I'm ready.
All right, Daniel. Great job at the presentation yesterday. I know you did hard work. Really good. That's one. Let's do recognition moment 2. Daniel, at the presentation yesterday, oh my gosh, you knocked it out of the park. Senior leadership walked away from that presentation crystal clear on the roadmap and the value proposition. And I'm telling you, when the CFO was coming at you with all these questions, and I knew you were a little uncomfortable, you handled it like an executive. I so appreciate all the work you did beforehand, as does everybody who was in that meeting. Really good job. So I basically said the same thing 2 different ways. Which one felt better?
Well, the latter was obviously it was longer, but it was more specific with specific examples and why you felt it was a greater presentation. So it had specificity and examples that and it felt more authentic because you observed it and you had formulated that. And so
Right. It wasn't just a hand wave. Good job.
Yep,
Hold up the
it
hand
was.
wave. Nobody's going to remember the hand wave.
Nope.
So building a fan club is one thing to do. To build a fan club is to give that kind of recognition to the people you work with. Specific, close to when the thing happened. Don't say, hey, Daniel, that presentation from 6 months ago was great. Like, say it the next day. And the more specific it is, it builds connection, it builds trust. People feel valued. Okay, and I tell all the product managers and leaders I work with, I want you to give one specific recognition moment every single week to somebody. And I want you to tell it to them and their boss and your boss, so they know they're a rock star. So building a fan club is about helping others feel like rock stars. And there's a ton of data behind this. Holy cow. There's a lot of data around the science of gratitude and recognition. Okay. And this is literally something you can do this week. Let me go back to screen sharing. Okay, so you want to celebrate and recognize. Again, we're building a fan club of people who know we're a leader, who we're going to then say, of course, they're ready for the promotion. I want you to also start talking about the wins. I want you to talk about the customer deployments, or the customer you were talking to yesterday, or the new thing the team did, or the new process they put in place. Every time something good happens, I want you to tell people about it. Not just with you, but with your cross-functional team, with your direct team, Slack, emails, meetings. Great, we had a great customer deployment this week. We've got 10,000 users on the system and they love it. Okay, so your action item, I want you to give one person a recognition moment this week. And I want it to be somebody you don't interact with frequently. Okay, I don't want it to be your buddy who you're always chatting with. I want it to be something who maybe you'll catch them by surprise. And it's specific, specific, specific. Okay, so we've talked about 2 ways to move into leadership. The third thing is we need to redesign work. So this is like, I've been ranting about this for years. And if for anybody who follows me on LinkedIn, I talk about this all the time. The only way we can innovate is for people to feel valued, respected, and be treated as humans. The problem is the way a lot of organizations work. It's based on this old definition that if you work 40 hours and we'll pay you. This is where the job description comes from. This is where the yearly performance review comes from. This is where the hierarchy comes from. When you think of work as a contract, this is when people hoard information. They hide issues. There's hierarchy. There's micromanagement. People are told, not asked. There's fear. Don't want to make a mistake. Don't ask any questions. You can't disagree. And we operate in a state of stress and fear. Nothing good happens out of that. Innovation cannot happen. So I would love in the chat, and this is a safe place. I've worked in this type of environment for many years. It almost killed me from cancer, the stress of it. Who has worked in this type of environment, and how has it made you feel? Throw it in the chat if you want. Have you ever felt like you were a cog in the wheel? Have you ever felt that you couldn't ask a question? This is a very old way to work. Nobody wants to put it in. That's okay. That's okay. It's a tough subject, and we don't talk about it a lot in the world of product. But again, when we operate in this environment, stress, anxiety, frustration, mental health challenges, everything. And certainly zero innovation. We're not going to bring our A game to work. So here's what I want you to do. I want you folks to focus on not being that person. I want you to treat your colleagues as human beings. Work as a relationship. We need to connect with people. And here's what I love about being in product is even if you work in the most toxic of environments, you still have a team where you can set the tone. And Jim, you're 100% correct. The stress trigger, I call it, there's a whole set of tools I go through. It triggers this like reptile brain where you go into fight or flight and you cannot be productive. But here's the reality, folks. Again, if you work in the most insane toxic environment, you can still treat your engineers, your marketing people, your legal team as human beings, not cogs in the wheel. You want your meetings to look like a loud bar. You want your meetings to look like a loud bar where people are laughing, arguing, standing up, working on whiteboards. That's a team where innovation is going to happen. When you have people who are connected to one another, work as a relationship, they're treated as human beings, they can be themselves, it's like a loud Italian family dinner. When you're in it, if you have a team where it's quiet, that's a problem. I would love to hear experiences from you folks. What does a team where it's where they're connected, where it's the loud bar. Tell me about it. Somebody, please tell me about a team that I've worked in so many teams like that, and it's so much fun. Has anybody ever worked on that type of team, and how did it look? Yeah, small startups, absolutely. Others? So this is the thing. When you intentionally go into your meetings and your team and you try to build that connection, you will be seen as a leader. Think of the loud bar. You want your scrum meetings, you want your planning meetings. Yes, there are times you need to get all fancy schmancy formal. Here's the deck, snooze fest. But when you're innovating, I want the bar, because that's when the good stuff's going to happen. Right? Don't we say the new product ideas are like on a napkin at the bar? That's what we want. That's what we want our teams to look like. And that is leadership. If you can cultivate that type of environment within your team, you will get promoted. All right. Couple more things. And you can do this today, gang. And this is the magic. This is the magic. If I had to describe how to move into leadership and love your job, it seems kind of ridiculous, but it's to be the leader of the bar, where you're innovating, where you're brainstorming, where you're talking. Okay, will get you that seat at the table. You'll become a thought leader, and you will be the leader others want to follow, because they can be themselves in front of you. They can bring their A game. You can argue, debate. You don't operate in a culture of fear, like being squashed like a bug. And this is where, in the world of tech, we have it backwards. We have it backwards. Okay, so for you, if you want to level up to leadership, reduce stress, and love what you do, I want you to lead with inspiration. I want you to build a fan club. And I want you to embrace the reality that work is a relationship. And the last thing I want you to do is treat your career like a product. You need a job. We have core values, each of us. You want your career and your job to be in alignment with your values, your priorities, who you want to be, what's important to you. Like I said, my top value is connection. I could not work for an organization where I was told I could not talk to that person, but I could only talk to that person. That wouldn't work with me. I couldn't work there. Okay. And it's all about branding yourself. Treat your career. I want you to use marketing. Who are you? What do you care about? Who's your target market? What makes you unique? What kind of job matches who you are? How do you put yourself on LinkedIn based on who you are? Not what others think, but who you are. Becoming a leader is being yourself, knowing yourself, and putting yourself out there as yourself. Okay? Branding, we are always branding. Okay? All right. So I'm going to tell you really quick, this is another thing I do. And I would love people to listen to this. I know people are multitasking, but if you could just pause give me 2 minutes. There's a tool I teach, and it's called Tell Me About Yourself. Tell me about yourself you use during interviews, when you meet a new client, when you meet somebody new at work. And I'm going to give you my tell me about yourself in a second. And tell me about yourself is not your resume. Okay. It's who you are. It's who are they about to work with? And when who you are and what you care about aligns with the company you're working for, that's when things get really awesome. So I'm going to show a little vulnerability, and I'm going to share my Tell me about yourself. Okay. And I'm actually going to share my screen. Just I usually, I like to use a visual when I teach this to my clients. Okay. All right, here we go. Everybody go off mute. Just I want you to listen to this because I want to brainstorm after this what things you saw about this. All right. So I grew up in the 80s, one of 4 daughters, in case you couldn't tell by the hair. And I was one of those kids. I was in junior achievement, tennis team, swim team, doing homework. But the rule in the house was we always had to be home, be at the dinner table by 6 o'clock, because this when Dad came home. And what's interesting is my dad was actually a product manager. So I'm actually a 2nd generation product manager. And the thing is, we were never sure what version of my dad would come home. The one who was so anxious he could barely talk. The one who was told that he was terrible every day at work. My dad's a brilliant man. He has over 40 patents. But he worked in a toxic environment. It impacted him. It impacted his happiness, and it impacted my sisters and I. And I swore I would never, ever work in that type of culture. And here I am, a working mom, 2 beautiful children, and the exact same thing is happening. My kids ended up with literally like a sign language. When I would come home, whoever would see me first, it's mom in a good mood or is mom in a bad mood? What's going on? This happened from working in a toxic environment where I worked in fear. And I got to the point where I'm like, this is ridiculous. How could they expect me or my dad to build great products when we feel like this? And that's what started my journey. My journey, I then pivoted from managing call center software to managing employee engagement. My journey brought me to graduate school to learn more. And I sit at the intersection of organizational culture and technology. My passion is how can technology enable organizations to create environments that are diverse, inclusive, where people can bring their best self to work. All right, so that is my tell me about yourself. I would use that in an interview. Yes, I would. Now, I would never interview for Bank of America, but I'd be interviewing for a company that's in the world of tech and culture, because that's what's important to me. And I told this story at my last director interview, landed the job. It was like a no-brainer for them. So what, for those who heard it, what storytelling elements did you hear? What resonated? Come on, gang, I just told a great story. Let's hear it.
Very focused on relationships. You're very proud of your heritage, your family.
Yeah.
And that you want your kids to be proud of you.
Yeah. And do you see the storytelling full circle? Like start out with my dad, then me, and then I overcame it. And now it drives what I do as a product manager. It drives why I want to work for a Workday, or I work for WorkHuman for many years. These technologies that are fixing culture and trying to help managers be better. Could you visualize the dinner table with my dad coming home?
I did.
Yeah.
I'd say it also demonstrated a huge amount of passion about why it's not tell me why you want this job. It's this is who I am and this is important and it's a
Correct.
core value.
Correct. Absolutely correct. When you go into a job, when you are aligned from a core value perspective, you are on purpose and on mission. And that's when work also gets really fun and people see you as a leader. To this day, people say, oh, Lynne, you're the dad. You're the dad story. Now, isn't that so much better than, all right, I started out my career working at Verizon, and then I went to graduate school, and then I worked at Kronos, and then I was promoted. I mean, oh, come on, that's totally boring. give me a story, who you are. So tell me that, so moving up in your career is being able to tell a passionate, authentic story about yourself. All right, so this is what you do to level up, love your job, and really jam at work where work is fun. So what we've got a couple minutes. Let's do some questions. What questions do you folks have?
I'll throw in the first one to get the ball rolling. If anyone happens to be in an organization that they feel like, oh, you've just described my toxic workplace, what is there some advice on? One is, do you think you could change it and influence it? But two is, kind of advice on navigating that and either improving the situation you're in or finding another situation that will not put you in the same scenario, but just with different faces.
So that's a great question. So if you're in a toxic environment, what's usually happening is that everybody in that environment is what we call being triggered. They're in their reptile brain. They're screaming at each other. They're getting defensive. They're getting snippy. They're micromanaging. So the first thing you can do is understand that this is our human biology. It's got nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with whether you're going to get fired or whether people don't think you're great. It's human biology kicking in. The board of directors is meeting tomorrow. The CEO is terrified he's going to lose his job. The release is going to be late. The CTO isn't sure what to do. So once you realize that we are basically, everybody is operating in this state of fear, which is why we see some really poor behavior. So first thing to do is recognize it's not you. And the moment you can recognize that and step back and then look at the situation from really, I call it the human side of your brain, things will immediately start to settle down. So you can then say, all right, is this for me or is this not for me? And I challenge you, if you are working in a toxic environment that's continuously toxic, that it's time to say to yourself, I deserve better. Marinating in negativity, I don't care what the title of your company is, marinating in a negative culture is destructive to you, your health, and every single one of your relationships. End of story. Did that answer your question, Tom? Kind of, sort of?
Yeah, no, I think that was a great answer. And, like I said, I certainly heard that from folks in the industry from time to time of, hey, get me out of here. Or what should I do? It's a common question that different groups of PMs.
It's to step back and look at it and say, this is really what I want. And part of my expertise as a product coach is dealing with people who are in these environments to help them step back, step into leadership. And the moment you can navigate the complexities of these relationships, that's the moment you can become a leader. Again, tech is easy, people are hard. All right, Jim.
Keen on the same subject. Prevention is a lot better than cure. So I usually advise people to ask some good questions when you're interviewing to reveal what kind of environment that is. I was wondering if you would share some of your favorite questions to ask to kind of expose what kind of culture they got.
Absolutely. So tell me. So I always tell my clients, listen, after you get the offer, I want you to have a one-on-one. I want you to request a meeting with your colleagues. The type of question I want you to ask is, tell me, when you folks built the roadmap for last quarter, who was involved in it? Who was in that room making the roadmap decisions? Were you there, or was it just leadership? Tell me about how your team meetings are. Your last team meeting. Would you describe it like a loud bar? Or is it kind of your boss, the manager talks? So I asked for, if you ask people general questions, they're going to say, it's hard to answer. But tell me again, the last meeting, the last decision. Think about the last fire drill you had. Who was engaged in the fire drill? Who was empowered? Who did what? And watch their body language. Do they cringe? Or do they say, yeah, let me tell you. Other questions?
Yeah, this is Sudhi. So sometimes, even though you follow the servant leadership model, right? Sometimes people consider that as the more of the softer style of leadership, as opposed to someone who's constantly, tooting their own horn, right? So how, I know you talked about in your exercise here, how do you build that power or gain that power, but what are other strategies to use to really, because I really enjoy, I don't see the team members that I have as, who they are. I see as who they could become. And I really use that as a way to, bring out the best in the team, right? So because
Excellent.
to me, I learn from them and we move together, right? So
There you go.
but
You're
some-
a leader
yeah.
right there. That's leadership, my friends. Really good. So so what's interesting, and I go through, what happens when you go up the leadership chain?
Mhm.
And this, I geek out on this stuff. Your brain actually changes. Your brain actually becomes hooked on the dopamine of power. And the part of your brain that cares about people is actually muted.
Oh, wow.
It's very interesting, which is why people who were amazing leaders move up the chain, and it's like, what happened to them? So the challenge is to surround yourself with people who will question you, who will keep you honest. And if you're in an environment where leadership is that, I want you, when you present, you can manage your people as a servant leader, but when you're talking to them, I want you to mirror their energy. Let me tell you, here's what we're doing. Here's the risk. Strong, confident. You need to mirror that energy for them to listen to you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any comments on, you had touched on the fact that PMs typically don't have direct reports, until you get up to director level or senior and above. A few thoughts on leadership when you've got indirect influence in these indirect teams, and any thoughts around that you'd like to share?
Ooh, leadership is all about building trust and being the person everybody wants to work with. So even when we talked about the loud bar, that's your indirect team. I want your cross-functional meetings to look like that. I want you to build trust and build an environment when you're brainstorming, people can do what they can, bring their self to work. I want you to learn how to give feedback, so you can give feedback in a way where people can learn and grow. And again, as product managers, the only thing you haven't done is maybe decided somebody's raise. That's it. We've done everything else with leadership. So I challenge you to recognize and say, of course, I'm a leader, and step into it. So my website is Lynne with an E, Levy.com. I blog all the time. Feel free, sign up for my newsletter, periodically visit my website. My passion is helping people like you, like all you folks.
Definitely the newsletter. That should have been one of the exercises of number 5. Sign up for the newsletter.
There we go. Sign up. So to my website, lynnelevy.com with an E.
And then make sure you're plugged into SVPMA as well. Or if you're based out of Boston, BPMA.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. What else do you folks need? Any other questions for me? I've been through it all. I've seen it all. I've been through it all. And I love being a product manager. Once you can navigate the people side of it, it becomes really fun.
Definitely identified with the people as people are difficult and technology is easy. Having launched a number of products and the engineers thought they had built the perfect mousetrap, and then they wondered, why isn't this selling? And then they tried to explain, you know, the cool way that this thing was built, and it didn't go anywhere. And they had to explain to people, and they suddenly realized the real problem that they had was to get people to change habits and do something different was a bigger problem than building the technology.
Oh, absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
that was quite humbling to see a product nearly fail that was, you know, spectacularly wonderful from an engineering standpoint. And people sort of looked at it and didn't get it and continued doing what they were doing before. So I've definitely seen that, you know, humans are difficult to change. You can change software, you can change hardware really easily. You just get a new box and plug a new thing in. But it's the people that are really don't respond to, well, we'll just hit the reset button. There's no reset button on people necessarily.
Right, exactly. Which is why, to a certain extent, when we talk to our engineers, that we need to let them do the design and the architecture, and we bring the amazing client and their context and what they're working with, so they get it. But yes, tech is easy, people are hard.
Yeah, I see Mark had a comment in here, the people part of the use case to an engineer, explaining that and how they can help, how they're helping the people can be magic when you can connect those two. And yeah, I agree, Mark. That's one of the primary kind of dopamine hits I get as a product manager, is when I see all of the engineers' hard work, and then I've connected them to the customers. They understand, oh, that's how they're using my invention. That's kind of, you know, and bridge that divide with, because they frequently are stuck in the labs. They never see what the customers are doing out in the field. And the customers never fully appreciate, you know, all the hard work that's going on inside the eggshell. And if you can connect the two, we're fortunate as product managers to be able to see both sides of the equation and connect them and make sure that people just can kind of understand one another on both sides of that fence. So we've got 3 minutes. Somebody's got to have another question. Any additional comments, thoughts? You're typing. maybe we'll get some things in the chat window. There we go. Or Jim, did you just want to unmute, and you can welcome.
There's nothing like getting your developers to visit a customer once in a while to get them to really get the aha, because then they start to feel the pain that the customer's going through, and they look around the environment and go, oh, that's why what I was about to build isn't going to work here, and all those other sorts of things. But they get the emotional impact of it, as well as the physical sense of the place and the problems.
Yeah, and I think too often focused in technology on that front, we kind of leave off the human side of it, as Lynn was saying. Yeah, that's often overlooked because we think that's the easy part, and it's not always. In fact, it almost never is. All right, well, with that, we are rounding up into the top of the hour. I'd like to thank Lloyd. My tongue clearly has expired. I'd like to thank Lynn, and we can give a virtual round of applause in there. But I'd definitely like to thank her for her time. This was enlightening, and definitely felt a lot of familiar themes that were floated out, not only by Lynn, but by the questions coming from the audience. Really grateful for this talk. I'm certainly going to be sending the YouTube link out to a number of folks. Anyone who needed a copy of the slides will also be posting the PDF of the slides. So that is available for your reference if you can't read the scribbles that you made on the sheet of paper in front of you tomorrow morning. And we wish you all well. We will see you again soon. Stay tuned on the, however you found out about this meeting, stay tuned to the sbpma.org website. We will be announcing a new meeting soon. And we hope to all see you there. Don't forget about the workshop that's coming up. That information is also on the website. And thanks once again, Lynn, and have a great rest of your evening, and hope you get a good night's rest before having to tackle the next product management challenge in the morning.
Thank you all.
Thanks, guys. See you next meeting.